Courtney Love loves Geese. Chappell Roan does not hate children. Neurosis surprise released an album, and much more. I'm Dave. I'm here with Amanda, and you're listening to BV Weekly. Hey all. Once again, Andrew is taking some time off to spend time with his newborn. But once again, we did get him to talk about a few albums, both current and some from 1996. So stay tuned for that, including the new 1996 album feature, which we're doing at the end of every episode now, looking back at albums that have turned 30 this year. Bill, meanwhile, is in Tennessee for the Big Ears Festival, but don't worry, he will be stopping by as well today to run down some new albums that he reviews in Indie Basement. And welcome back, Amanda.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How's Buckley?
He's wonderful. What an adorable guy. He's looking out my window right now. We'll see if he makes an appearance later.
Some people are like trying to imagine who Buckley is right now and just imagining this friend of yours staring out the window, possibly making an appearance.
He is a friend of mine. He's also
yeah, that's true. You would have heard about Buckley if you listened last week. Have you or Buckley made it to any shows this past week?
Buckley, no, but I actually did manage to tear myself away from him for a little while to go to a show this week. Friday was, I don't know, it was a very difficult choice to make that night. There was an Avalon Emerson and the Charm show happening at Nightclub 101 that I wanted to go to also, but for a while, I really wanted to see Witch Post do their debut NYC performance at Union Pool. So that is the duo of Alaska Reed and Dylan Frazier. They released their first EP for Partisan on Friday, and yeah, they're on a tour now. I got into them via getting into Alaska through her 2023 album Disenchanter, and that was co-produced by her partner A.G. Cook, and that is how I learned about Witch Post. And it's I think pretty different from her solo material. It's pretty grungy, but also the vocal interplay between Alaska and Dylan is really, really lovely and magical. And they also, I think, tend to get into like some interesting lyrical topics via their name, Witch Post. There's some of that kind of fantasy element threading through their music. And seeing them live, I really love the show. I felt like they were so compelling, and they had that quality that I can't quite articulate, but that makes me feel like a band has that star quality and they're going to go places. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to, hear more from them. And that EP I'm obsessed with it. I've been listening to it on a lot this week, even though I also need to listen to actual new albums that come out this week. But
the struggle.
The struggle is real.
I got to check that out more. I gave it a quick listen, and it was late, not enough to weigh in yet. But yeah, that's awesome. And that's awesome. You got to see them at Union Pool, nice and intimate.
What about you? Did you make it? Did you make it to any shows?
I was going to say Witch Post sounds very metal, but not
musically,
metal.
But the name
not musically.
Does.
The name Witch Post. I did make it to an actual metal show with also bands that sound very metal by their name on Saturday night. For me on Saturday, it was either going to be FKA Twigs at Madison Square Garden. I did want to go to that very badly.
That was a very tempting one.
It looked awesome, but I didn't plan well enough. And I also really wanted to see Yellow Eyes in Ridgewood, Queens at TVI, another nice intimate Brooklyn club. So that is what I did. I went to the metal show. I don't regret it. Yellow Eyes put out one of our favorite albums in any genre last year. Also one of our favorite black metal albums, along with Agriculture from last year. This was actually the belated release show. So even though I've seen them a few times in the past, it was actually the first time they played a show here, I think, since the album came out. So I was obsessed with that album. I really wanted to go, and they were great. The bill was really good too. It was 3 bands. The first opener was New York City speed metal trio Satanic Magic. I told you the band names were awesome at this show too. They have Satanic Magic has members of Anacon, Trench Grinder, and Mutant Supremacy. Maybe not household names, but reliably great New York City extreme metal bands who we've always loved. And Satanic Magic are part of that lineage, and they were predictably great. In the middle of the bill was this Philadelphia death doom band called Bone Weapon, who I think maybe they do win Best Band Name of the Night. Also
Ooh,
good.
tough choice. I think Satanic Magic might win for me, but
Well,
you know.
Bone Weapon had an actual bone on their merch table, so
Oh,
that
okay. I see what you're
I don't
doing
know if
there.
that brings it over the edge, but yeah, they were good. That was a new discovery for me. They have a new album out this year. Whoever curated the show, I'm not surprised. They put good bands on there, so that was fun. I do wish I got to see FKA Twigs, but that was a great show. Speaking of FKA Twigs, between looking at footage from Madison Square Garden and watching videos from Madison Square Garden, she has been like all over the news lately. Not just because of her, it was her first arena show in the legendary Madison Square Garden here in New York City, but she's all over the news because of legal issues. Yes, 2 separate legal issues. The first, 90s all pop duo The Twigs. So there's a reason FKA Twigs is called FKA Twigs, formerly known as Twigs, because she was formerly known as Twigs. She changed that name because 90s alt pop duo The Twigs, aka also sometimes known as Twigs, started sending her cease and desist letters. So, right, I think that's why she changed her name to FKA Twigs.
I believe so, yeah.
So meanwhile, in the past 10 years, FKA Twigs is a massive artist, lots of huge, like amazing albums, and headlining Madison Square Garden. And Twigs, as FKA Twigs writes in her, I should have taken the quotes, but FKA Twigs definitely disses them pretty hard in this new lawsuit she filed against them, because they have come after like going away 10 years ago. They've come back and they're sending FKA Twigs cease and desists again and saying, you need to pay us for using our name. And she like countersued them and said, you need to leave me alone.
It's so silly. Like, I really feel like they just need to leave her alone. Like, she already added the FKA. Like, what more do they want for, like,
the quotes in the lawsuit are pretty funny. She said something like, I have this massive career. No human would ever confuse the two of us. Not to mention, I have 3 million monthly streams and you have 750 monthly streams. Like all these things to point out that you couldn't possibly think FKA Twigs is 90s band Twigs.
Right. It's so silly. Just like, let it go. Let it go.
So meanwhile, right before we started recording, FKA Twigs' name came into the news again because she has just filed another lawsuit against her ex, Shia LaBeouf, again over a non-disclosure agreement related to the 2020 sexual battery lawsuit against him. That's been ongoing for years. So yeah, that's just the latest. Shia also in the news a lot lately because of some drunken escapades at Mardi Gras. That's a messy one. You know who else it's really messy for right now all over the news?
I think I know who you're going to say.
Chappell Roan.
Yeah.
Who has come out and said she does not hate children. I think you all know that story by now. It's all over everybody's feed. But the latest is that the security guard who allegedly, well, no longer allegedly yelled at a child for walking by, a child of very also famous people, for walking by Chappell Roan in a restaurant of the hotel they were both staying in Brazil, where she was playing that night, I think. The security guard has now come forward with his own statement, taking full responsibility for the situation. Unclear if there was a gun to his head while he wrote this, but he said basically that Chappell did not tell him to do it. He wasn't working directly for her. He is sorry. It was all his fault.
And like, I guess my recurring theme, not to be all like, leave Britney alone, but like, leave Chappell alone. Let her live. She is allowed to be a private person. Like, she does not have to interact with anyone when she's like not on stage or doing an official event. Like, why are we like this with artists? And like, I even feel like it would be a good learning experience for a child to learn that like, you're not owed the time of famous people. Like, I don't know.
So this child is the child of also famous people.
Right. So you would think they would know that, like,
well,
hey,
I'm not defending the security guard in this case, but you go on.
I don't know. I just want people to like let artists be when they're not performing or doing some kind of an official event. Just like let them live, you know?
Amanda, do you
I-
hate children?
well, things have been said. I mean, no, I don't hate children.
You know who
Um,
else is defending Chappell Roan? Courtney
ooh,
Love. Courtney Love
Courtney.
just put a an Instagram story that points out, she didn't write it, she shared somebody else's, but basically implying that as a fellow outspoken woman who has had to deal with people smearing her in the press and being hounded by paparazzi, which was part one of this story, actually. Coincidentally, days before the whole Brazil thing happened, Chappell Roan was filmed telling paparazzi to leave her alone, and an autograph guy who is, I think, an infamous guy who goes up to celebrities to get autographs to sell them, so it wasn't even
Yeah,
like an actual fan.
these people are relentless.
Yeah, so yeah, and Courtney can relate with this stuff, and yes, so
Yeah.
she just put a story out, and I am of course checking Courtney Love's Instagram stories regularly, because my favorite thing happening on Instagram right now has to be Courtney Love being a Geese stan.
Oh, it's so fun. I love Courtney's whole journey of Geese, from Geese curious to her current state of Geese fandom.
So Wednesday night she went to see Geese, and she was so excited, and she documented the entire experience. A few days before that, she posted this whole like Geese are like the new Sonic Youth statement, which we posted as well, the video on our Instagram, and that was awesome.
It was also really funny because she captioned it with Geese team asked me not to do any more hot takes, but then she went on to do another hot take. So Courtney perhaps in trouble with Geese's team.
Do
Hopefully
you
they
think that's
will
true?
forgive
Would
her.
Geese's team tell Courtney Love to stop posting about Geese?
It's hard to imagine they would. I don't know. It's hard
Is
to
that why
say.
Courtney deleted her most? So since then, so she got home from the Geese show Wednesday night. I was still up, and she immediately posted another Instagram reel that was like, the Geese show was so good. I took lots of videos on my phone, which she did. They're in her Instagram stories. She was like one of us at the Geese show, and then she showed the T-shirt she bought. She's like, I got merch. It was very awesome.
Courtney Love is really just like you and me.
When I woke up this morning, that Instagram story was mysteriously, not the story, the reel was deleted, the one with the shirt. The stories were still there for having fun at the show.
All right. If anyone knows what happened, email us.
Especially Geese's team.
Yes. Hit us up.
I wonder if Courtney would have ranked Geese higher. Not I wonder. I know Courtney would have ranked Geese higher than 7 on Pitchfork's best of 2025 list if she had her say. That was kind of shocking one.
I think so. That was a little low.
It was a little low. I think where'd we put Geese? 2?
Something like that. How have I already forgotten?
I feel like we must have had Geese at 2. I know we had Def Heaven at 1, but they
had to have been like top 5, right?
Yeah. So Pitchfork famously had Los Tutanaka as their favorite album of 2025. I hope I said that right. And why am I talking about Pitchfork's best albums right now? Because Pitchfork just launched, in the name of March Madness, a best albums bracket, which they are calling a Tournament of Champions, held in honor of our 30th anniversary. For the next 3 weeks, 32 albums will go head to head, and you'll help us decide the winner of them all. So why 32? Because they've been ranking album of the year for 28 years. So they have 28 previously named best album of the year albums. They then added 4 more albums that topped the list of their best albums of 1990s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s lists that were not totally consistent with the best album of the year. So they came up with 32 albums, and they are pitting those albums against each other in this bracket. So every week people will vote on which album wins in each bracket. However, I'm not a sports guy. I don't know how to describe that properly, and I don't know how they put them against each other. But Amanda, let's play this really quick. And
Let's do it.
The first matchup on the Pitchfork Best Albums bracket, they've got Frank Ocean's Blonde from 2016 against The Knife's Silent Shout from 2006. And here's where it's unclear to me how Frank Ocean and the Knife got paired here. I don't know if that happens randomly or probably somebody who knows more about basketball could explain this. There might actually be an answer, but let's just go with it. So Frank Ocean versus the Knife, Frank Ocean Blonde versus the Knife, Silent Shout. What do you got, Amanda?
It's got to be Frank. I love the Knife, but I feel like that Blonde is like a generational classic. So
I'm also going Frank Ocean. I'm going Frank Ocean. So that is tough. I don't know. The Knife maybe hasn't aged as well. Frank Ocean is still like in the DNA of all the music I listen to regularly. But
and
yeah,
the Knife is a little 10 years older, so that,
recency bias here. Yeah. Channel Orange actually more my Frank Ocean album, but I'm still going Blonde. All right, on to the next one. Solange's A Seat at the Table 2016 versus Panda Bear Person Pitch from 2007.
I'm Team Solange here. That to me is the correct choice.
Nothing against Solange. That album was during a time when maybe I just wasn't paying attention to that album as much, if that's a weird sentence. Panda Bear meant a lot more to me back in 2007, so I'm going Panda Bear Person Pitch. All right.
That's very fair. Very fair.
Next one. I know you like this. This is a fun category. Did they do this on purpose? Honestly,
I feel like they had to do this on purpose, just to
Could it be random? Could it be if there's some math
no way
that
this
worked
is random.
out? No, like AI, because they would use AI for this one. AI told them for the most engagement, pair Kanye West's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy from 2010 against Arcade Fire's Funeral from 2004. Amanda, would you care to weigh in on this one?
Pass. I pass. That's all I want to say. What about you, Dave?
I get it, but I am going to vote Arcade Fire Funeral because as much as more recent Arcade Fire developments pain me, I cannot deny how important this album was to me.
No, that album was so important to me.
And to the history of Brooklyn Vegan. Brooklyn Vegan also started in 2004, and it really felt like the rise of Brooklyn Vegan. Brooklyn Vegan rose very fast in popularity as a blog in 2004, and it was like parallel with Arcade Fire. Like Brooklyn Vegan was there at Arcade Fire's, first small shows and the next show and the next show. Like the first year of Brooklyn Vegan, I think I photographed like 15 Arcade Fire shows. It was just like that rise was very exciting.
Yeah.
There were some blogs in New York City, music blogs that predated Brooklyn Vegan that kind of rode the wave of the Strokes and White Stripes. Brooklyn Vegan kind of came too late to ride that wave, but was like right there for Arcade Fire.
But not that late, really.
No, I mean, Strokes, White Stripes, that was still a big part of early BV, but those albums were, out before Brooklyn Vegan. Like Arcade Fire came out right then. Anyway, we'll stop talking about that. All right, next one. Fleet Foxes, self-titled from 2008 versus Sufjan Stevens, Illinois, 2005. Now
it's got to be Illinois. Got to be Illinois.
Pitchfork posted this bracket on Instagram, and Robyn Pecknold, the frontman of Fleet Foxes, commented as he does and wrote, "I'm screwed."
Yeah, I'm sorry, Robyn, but you are. No, I love Fleet Foxes, but
I love Fleet Foxes, and
undeniable.
Especially in real time in 2008. I loved Fleet Foxes.
Huge.
But I loved Sufjan Stevens, also another really important artist to the early days of Brooklyn Vegan. So yeah, sorry, Robyn, you are screwed. I'm also going Sufjan Stevens. All right, next one. Animal Collective, Merriweather Post Pavilion versus Interpol, Turn on the Bright Lights. See, now this is what I mean. Interpol is 2002. That's 2 years before Brooklyn Vegan started. Interpol in there with the Strokes and White Stripe is like, Brooklyn Vegan didn't quite ride that one like we rode Animal Collective, actually. But go ahead. But you know what? I associate Animal Collective. I remember when Brooklyn Vegan started, Pitchfork, I was like, man, Pitchfork really loves this Animal Collective band. That was
Merriweather Post Pavilion is like one of the albums I most closely associate with Pitchfork in my mind.
Well, that's funny because I'm even talking about, so Merriweather came out 2009, and yeah, of course, Pitchfork's still all over that in 2009. But yeah, even in the earlier Animal Collective albums, it was like Pitchfork really wanted to make that band. And so how are we voting here?
So Merriweather is my favorite Animal Collective album, I would say. I'm not a big Animal Collective fan. I respect them more than I actually listen to them actively. But Turn on the Bright Lights was like an extremely important album for me personally and for me just like developing my taste in music, I guess. So I got to go with that one.
I'm with you. Interpol,
Nice.
you win this one. Next one, Daft Punk Discovery 2001 versus Cindy Lee Diamond Jubilee 2024. Easy one for me, Daft Punk. Sorry, Cindy Lee.
Also easy one for me, Cindy Lee.
Oh!
Daft Punk I never really got into them that much. Is that horrible to admit?
No, you're not really an electronic music person.
No,
I was a big electronic music person before there was a Brooklyn Vegan, and Daft Punk was a huge band for me then. And Daft Punk also a huge part of BV history. It's like one of the biggest BV memes before that word existed.
True.
What time does Daft Punk go on? Everyone always wondered why we didn't make a Brooklyn Vegan shirt with that slogan.
Well, they probably would have sued us, but
that's the reason. Yeah, that could be the reason. Daft.
Slogan.
All right. Next one, the Rapture Echoes 2003. If there was ever a album of the year that people reference as being funny that Pitchfork did, sorry, but it's the Rapture Echoes 2003. To put it again in BV context, Brooklyn Vegan started like 8 months after they did that. So that was also the Rapture was kind of riding that wave when BV started. And they put it up against, they did this on purpose. Come on, again.
This is so cruel.
Because the current Pitchfork staff probably is not into the Rapture either. So the fact that they put the Rapture Echoes 2003 versus Radiohead Kid A from 2000. Let me guess, you vote the Rapture.
I'm sorry. Kid A is the only answer here.
Kid A. Next. Lana Del Rey, Norman fucking Rockwell from 2019 versus Kendrick Lamar, Damn 2017. Damn, this is a hard one.
I think we're going to disagree on this because I am a bit of a contrarian. Damn is not my favorite Kendrick album, and Norman fucking Rockwell might be my favorite Lana album, so I gotta go with Lana.
Damn is not my favorite Kendrick album either. But I love Lana, but I don't have a favorite Lana album, if that makes sense.
It does.
I'm going to go Kendrick. All right,
nice.
Next. 2025 Los Tutanaka versus Fiona Apple Fetch the Bolt Cutters 2020.
Come on, Pitchfork. It's Fiona.
It's Fiona. Next.
It's always Fiona.
Okay, next we have a hard one. Mitski, Be the Cowboy from 2018 and Bon Iver Self-Titled from 2011.
So I gotta be a bit of a contrarian again and choose Mitski. Be the Cowboy might be my favorite Mitski album. I'm not sure. I mean, how to choose a favorite Mitski album. Love Bon Iver, but I gotta go with Mitski.
This is a really hard one for me too. Both artists I've been obsessed with. 2011 is still, it was the first Bon Iver album that really turned me into a huge Bon Iver fan, but I was still that by this album. I'm going Bon Iver. Next, Kendrick Lamar, Good Kid, Mad City, 2012 versus Playboi Carti, Whole Lotta Red, 2020.
Kendrick.
Yeah, sorry. We're not Playboi Carti people.
Sorry,
Next,
Playboi Carti.
Radiohead, OK Computer, 1997 versus Run the Jewels 2 from 2014. All right, come on. I know the new Pitchfork staff also doesn't like Run the Jewels. There is a reason Run the Jewels and The Rapture were both up against Radiohead albums. Come on.
Yeah, but having said that, OK Computer, there's no album quite like it.
I like Run the Jewels, but come on. Radiohead. Next.
Yeah.
We got SZA, SOS versus Vampire Weekend, Modern Vampires of the City, 2013. Easy one for me, SZA.
Oh, I was going to say, this is kind of a tough one. I do think I ultimately have to go with SZA, but gave Vampire Weekend a lot of thought there.
Love Vampire Weekend too, but man, I loved that SZA album. All right.
Sure.
The Microphones, The Glow Part 2 from 2001 versus Jasmine Sullivan. How do you pronounce her album?
Hotels.
Oh, right. Obviously. Sorry. Spelled Heaux. You get my... I loved that Jasmine Sullivan album. I was obsessed with that Jasmine Sullivan album. But
It's a very good album, but the microphone's just
the
undeniable.
microphone's got to win.
Yep.
Here we go again with the Kendrick competition. Kendrick Lamar, To Pimp a Butterfly from 2015 versus The Dismemberment Plan, Emergency and I from 1999.
Emergency and I is such a classic, but I still have to go with To Pimp a Butterfly, which is like, again, one of the all-time, an actual like all-time classic. But
I'm going with Kendrick as well.
yeah,
I wasn't a
sorry,
Dismemberment Plan fan in real time. So I kind of discovered that. I didn't know that album in 1999.
Yeah, I was a
Discovered
fan
them
a few
later.
years later.
All right, last one. Last but not least, we have Beyonce's Renaissance from 2022 versus Outkast's Aquemini from 1998.
For
What are we
me, it's
going?
gotta be Beyonce.
I know you and Andrew are huge Beyonce fans. I've never been on your level. I have nothing against Beyonce. I'm going Outkast. All right,
Nice.
that was fun. And
That
we
was fun.
didn't write it down. So now I don't know who goes up against who. We should have wrote it down. Oh, we can write it down later. This is a recording. And now we wait to find out not only who wins this bracket, but who gets the best album of 2026. Could it be one of the new albums out this week? Could it be the album that nobody saw coming? I definitely did not see this coming. Not out today, but released a few days ago. Or actually, was it released last Friday? I don't know when it came out. It came out within the past week.
I think it was out last Friday.
Right. So we had already recorded. Our episode was already live when we found out that Neurosis dropped a surprise new album. I have talked to multiple big Neurosis fans. I'm a big Neurosis fan. I have talked to multiple other big Neurosis fans in the past year, I'll just say. And the vibe I got is everybody thought Neurosis was like done forever. I'm sure there were people who knew that things were happening behind the scenes, but the average person could not have predicted that Neurosis would return with their first album in almost a decade because of the controversy that happened a few years ago. Maybe that's not the right word. When Neurosis fired co-founding co-vocalist guitarist Scott Kelly after Kelly admitted to abusing his family. It seemed after that the band were done for good. The band even said at the time Scott had crossed a line and there was no way back. With the heartbreak and horror, we also grieve for the loss of our life's work and a legacy that was sacred to us. I think, was it 2019 that Neurosis last toured? I went to that. Like their New York City show was one of their, in like the last week of that tour. And yeah, we all thought that's it. Neurosis are done. So it was a massive surprise when Neurosis actually did find a way to return last week with An Undying Love for a Burning World. Their first new album in a decade. Scott Kelly is not back in the band, in case you were wondering. And in his place was really the perfect replacement. Aaron Turner of Isis, Sumac, and Old Man Gloom. I was explaining to Amanda when this happened, Amanda not being a Neurosis fan, not really up on who Neurosis and Isis are in that way. I was saying, imagine Cocteau Twins had to lose their singer for doing something horrible and replaced her with Bjork. It's just like, Neurosis have basically invented this genre of sludgy post-metal, and Isis, who Aaron Turner fronted, was the other big band. To quote Andrew, Isis basically perfected the brand of sludgy post-metal that Neurosis pioneered. Actually, all right, Andrew came in and wrote a little. Here we go. The pairing is so perfect that even with the lineup change and Undying Love for a Burning World sounds like no other band in the world. Aaron nails the balance of bringing his own flavor while fitting right in with the distinct approach that Steve Von Tell, Dave Edwardson, Jason Reeder, and Noah Landis have honed for decades. Everything you want from Neurosis is there. The towering walls of sludge, the celestial soundscapes, the folky dirges, the adventurous song structures, the metal riffs with the punk ethos. One thing that also is not there, though, besides Scott, is Steve Albini, who actually produced recorded every Neurosis album since 1996's Through Silver and Blood. Steve Albini passed away in 2024. So for this album, they teamed up with Sumac collaborator Scott Evans, whose, to quote Andrew again, gritty, unfussy approach to engineering has clear echoes of Albini's work. And it's just truly an amazing album. To reference Pitchfork again, since we did just segue from that, they actually gave it a much-deserved Best New Music today. We saw right as we were starting to record. I think I've listened to this album like 20 times already since it came out. To quote Andrew one last time, "We need this perhaps more than ever, and we suspect we are not alone," Neurosis said upon the album's release, and they're right. An undying love for a burning world is what the world of heavy music has been missing. So, yay, Neurosis, check out that album. And in kind of related news, go ahead.
Oh, I definitely have to listen. I'm not up to date, but I gotta hear it.
In kind of related news, it was crazy that both of these things they've happened this week. Fellow sludge metal legends Crowbar, that I also love, and I'm sure a lot of Neurosis fans also love, are having a moment right now. Did you hear about this?
I didn't. I'm behind on TikTok too.
I'm always behind on TikTok. So I actually found this out on Hardlore, fellow podcast Hardlore, who are also huge Neurosis and Crowbar fans, that Crowbar has gone viral on TikTok, that their Spotify streams are off the charts, that they're already like leveling up on venues, and that Kirk Winstein, the singer of Crowbar, who's also in the band Down and in that new Typo Negative spin-off supergroup Sun Don't Shine, is like a TikTok star to the kids, that he's been like filming videos and they're all like, whoa, this is the guy who sings these songs. And it was like completely random Crowbar songs that have gone viral on TikTok. And anyway, that's just amazing.
I love it. I love it.
I think I already said I didn't see this Neurosis album coming. I definitely didn't see Crowbar becoming huge on TikTok coming, but as Hardlore said, much deserved and overdue. So like I said, I just read some things Andrew wrote, but like I said, Andrew also did record something. He recorded a bit about 5 notable releases that are out this week that he knew about when he recorded it, which was before we knew about Neurosis. So Andrew, welcome back. Why don't you quickly talk about these 5 albums?
There's an insane amount of new albums out this week, but I've narrowed it down to 5 for this video, but also go check out notable releases in Indie Basement on BrooklynVegan.com for all kinds of other new albums. We write about a bunch of them. It's so much out this week. But for this video, starting with Courtney Barnett's Creature of Habit. I love pretty much everything Courtney Barnett's ever done, but I have a huge place in my heart for her early material, which kind of makes like 90s alternative rock with 60s psychedelia, kind of done in a way that at this point really only sounds like Courtney Barnett. And this record is kind of the most like her early material than I think anything else she'd done kind of since then. And it's so good. One great song after the next. Love hearing Courtney Barnett kind of in this realm. It's awesome. Robyn is back with Sexistential. You've heard the singles. You know it's got dance floor bangers. Her last album was a little more atmospheric, which I love that kind of stuff too. But, you know, for those dancing on my own style bangers, Sexistential has got them, and Robyn remains a master. Tiger's Jaw have turned into one of the most reliably consistent bands in their world, or just in general. They sound like nobody else. They got this mix of a little indie rock, a little punk, a little emo, but they just do it in this way that's just Tiger's Jaw. And on this new record, Lost on You, it's just a record of great Tiger's Jaw songs is honestly the best way to put it. They're doing what they do best. They have not lost a step. The songwriting is still so just impactful, and it's really, really strong stuff. Irreversible Entanglements, the free jazz group with More Mother on vocals, are back with Future, Present, Past. It features a few guests, including Motherboard and Helado Negro, and in true Irreversible Entanglements fashion, they just do these super busy, chaotic, like kind of like free jazz moments, but also this really beautiful, pretty instrumental stuff. And then there's just More Mother, who lyrically is as much of an activist as a musician. And this record just really fires you up to get out there, fight for change, protest, do or say something. And it just sounds amazing in the process. Like I said, there were so many good albums out this week. Really hard to narrow it down. But for 5th, I got to go with Hit Like a Girl's Keepsake Theory. I think Hit Like a Girl are a little underrated, but if you're into indie punk or emo or kind of any other stuff in that realm, you should definitely not miss this record. Zaina from Sweet Pill is on it. I think if you're a Sweet Pill fan, you might like this too, but it's just really, really, really great indie punk, emo, that sort of vibe. And I can't recommend Hit Like a Girl enough.
Thanks, Andrew. And also notable releases this week. One of Dave's favorite East Coast boom bap revivalists, Stove God Cooks, after much delay, released his new album, All This For Me, which was produced by Swizz Beatz. We have a new album from more mother-led free jazz group Irreversible Entanglements, Future, Present, Past. The new album from Nashville emo band Free Throw, Moments Before the Wind. Red Hot Chili Pepper bassist Flea goes jazz on debut solo album Honora. Lindsey Jordan's third album is Snail Mail, Ricochet. Portland hardcore band Dry Sockets' new album Self-Defense Techniques. And Start Today, who are named after the 1989 Gorilla Biscuits album, and who, as Andrew puts it, are taking off thanks to their well-executed revival of the kind of youth crew hardcore that Gorilla Biscuits helped define. Their new album, Nothing to You, is 9 songs in 10 minutes.
I got to put 10 minutes aside and listen to that. We did not know that was coming. That was another surprise this week, at least to us, I think. Anyway, it came out before Friday, right?
I think so.
It was another one. Yeah, Neurosis and Start Today this week. Anyway, you know what else we're going to start today? Getting Bill on here. What's up, Bill?
Greetings from Knoxville, Tennessee, where I'm here for the 2026 Big Ears Music Festival, which starts a little later today. We're recording on Thursday, so it's 4 days of very eclectic programming, which I will talk about probably next week on the show after I've actually seen some music.
Yeah, can't wait to hear about it. So, meanwhile, what albums do you have in Indie Basement this week?
Right, it's a big Indie Basement this week. I reviewed 9 records, talk about a few of the big ones, and sort of do a quick overview of the rest. My album of the week is Memorials, All Clouds Bring Not Rain. It's the second album from the duo of Electra Lane's Verity Sussman and Matthew Sims, who plays in Wire and It Hugs Back. And if you dig Baroque Psych, Krautrock, and bands like Broadcast, few are doing that sort of thing better than these two in 2026. The songs are great. The production is amazing. It's a wonderful record to listen to on headphones or on like a nice stereo system or even your laptop. It's a real trip. And I'd also like to say that they're on tour this spring with Holy Fuck from Toronto, who also have a new album out this week. Also reviewed this week, the new Pornographers. Their new album's called The Former Side Of. It's their 10th album, and they've gone through a lot since 2023's Continue as a Guest, and I'm not really going to get into that, but you can look up New Pornographers and Problems or whatever. The band have always used synthesizers, but usually in a Cars sort of way, but this time synths really drive a lot of the songs, and it has a different vibe to it. It's also the most lyrically focused Carl Newman has ever been. I talked to him for next week's episode of the BV Interviews podcast, and he told me how on this record he wrote it so he can defend every single line. It's on the mellow side, but not in a boring way. I think this is their best album since Bro Bruisers. Again, it's called The Former Side Of. It's really good.
Does it have Nico Case on it?
It has Nico Case, but no Dan. Sorry.
No Behar. That's
Yep,
okay.
no Behar.
You miss him, but
both Nico and Catherine Calder do some just unbelievable harmonies on this record. It's really a big part of this record as well. So it's really good. Excuse me. Next up, we have NYC duo Fuckers, and that's spelled F-C-U-K-E-R-S. Shani Wise and Jackson Walker Lewis. They've been one of the leading dance music groups in NYC over the last few years. They've opened for LCD Sound System, Tame Impala, and more. This is their debut album, which they've taken a while to get to. This was produced by Kenny Beats, who's worked with everyone from Schoolboy Q and Freddie Gibbs and FKA Twigs to Idols and Geese. And it also features production work from 100 Gex Dylan Brady and Ice Spice collaborator Lily Kaplan. But they don't really mess with the Fuckers' minimal dance music style too much. People throw around indie sleaze with Fuckers, and they certainly are a part of the new party scene culture that's happening now. But unlike the Dare, they're not trying to recreate the sound of the mid-2000s. If anything, it's closer to late 90s big beat artists like Fatboy Slim or Basement Jaxx, or even flat beat creator Mr. Wazo, or if Dave's pronouncing it, Mr. Ozio, but in more of a minimal way. Their single Play Me is basically the Rockefeller Skank, but in the fuckers style. There's also a bit of trip hop, jungle, and acid jazz in there, and the best songs make use of Shani's breathy vocals. It's fun, and at 28 minutes, it never comes close to overstaying its welcome. Definitely worth a spin. This week, I also review Adults' Kissing Luck Goodbye, which is their 10th album, and like most of their records, feels primed for the apocalypse. We've also got Toronto rock dance vets Holy Fuck with their new album, Event Beat. As I mentioned before, they're on tour with Memorials this spring. We've also got Drop 19's singer-guitarist Paula Kelly's Blinking as the Starlight Burns Out. It starts very dream pop, Cocteau Twinsy, but then it transitions into more of like a piano-based singer-songwriter album you might have gotten in the late 70s. There's also a new Drop 19's record out later this year. I also review New German Cinema, which is the solo project of Fear of Men's Jess Weiss. It's a very gothy synth-pop sort of thing, a la mid-80s Depeche Mode by way of Front 242 production. There's a very cool duet with Carson Cox of Merchandise. It's almost like somewhere in between the Human League's Don't You Want Me and Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks' Stop Dragging My Heart Around. We also review the new Jose Gonzalez album, Against the Dying Light, which is gorgeous as always. And there's a record from Butler, Blake, and Grant, which is former Suede guitarist Bernard Butler, Teenage Fan Club's Norman Blake, and James Grant of 80s band Love and Money. It's mostly songs from their respective catalogs in kind of a Crosby, Stills, and Nash kind of way. Not essential, but nice. And that's all the records for this week on Indie Basement. But while I'm here, I just wanted to say I talk to Adrian Sherwood on this week's edition of the BV Interviews podcast. Adrian is a legendary dub and post-punk producer who worked with the pop group The Slits in the Fall back in the day, has produced Lee Scratch Perry and Horace Andy, and founded such groups as Tackhead and African Head Charge. More recently, he's done full album dub mixes of Panda Bear and Sonic Boom's Reset and Spoon's Lucifer on the Sofa. He's a true legend, and it was a blast talking to him. You can listen to that now on the BV Interviews podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And speaking of Lee Scratch Perry, I'm talking out of turn here, but they just announced what they're calling his final album, which is titled Spatial No Problem, which was made with German electronic duo Mouse on Mars. Now, Perry died back in 2021, and he's already had at least one posthumous record since then. This one is not a reggae album per se, but it's super awesome. I've actually already heard the whole thing, and it's closer to like Talking Heads or Grace Jones or other artists who recorded at legendary Bahamas studio Compass Point in the early 80s. The first single, Rock Curry, is out now. And speaking of that, on the interview with Adrian Sherwood, he says he's got another Lee Scratch Perry on the way as well. So it's kind of like Tupac. The records posthumous just don't stop coming.
And just like the episodes of BV's interviews don't stop coming, like you said, you've got two companions to the albums out this week, not even counting that Adrian Sherwood episode, which is the new episode. Also go back and listen to the Memorials episode, which was like one episode ago.
Right.
And stay tuned for that new Pornographers episode coming next week.
Yeah, it'll be available Monday, March 30th. And just to preview ahead, we've also got an interview with Bob Mould talking about the upcoming Sugar Reunion Tour. And we talked to Alex Edkins of Weird Nightmare. He used to be in Mets, and he's got an awesome new record that's coming out on Sub Pop, and that's also in the not too distant future.
You mentioned Compass Point in the Bahamas, which, because I'm a nerd, I've only been to the Bahamas once in my life, but I stayed. There's like a hotel at Compass Point, and you can visit the studio and stuff. And I did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the only time I went there. It was like a vacation type thing, but I made it a point to stay at Compass Point, to be a music.
Oh, wow.
To put some music aspect into it.
I've become obsessed with Compass Point in like the last year, like finding all these like weird records that were made there. And, you know, like Sly and Robbie were the house band at Compass Point. And so
now you
a
have a
sort of
vacation
touchstone.
idea. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Got to go to Funky Nassau.
All right, Bill, we should go let you festival.
And you'll hear from me next week, and we'll talk about all the stuff I've seen, the 17 John Zorn shows and Robert Plant and David Byrne and et cetera, et cetera.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. See you guys soon.
Thanks again, Bill. Dave, let's do the news.
Weezer announced a fall arena tour with the Shins and Silver Sun Pickups, which I think that's a lineup I want to see. And they're preparing a new album. More details on that are still to come, but they say the first single, Shine Again, is out on April 1st. No April Fools. London band Mary in the Junkyard, who you may have seen opening for Wet Leg last year. I actually saw them at our own South by Southwest show in 2025, I think it was, announced their debut full-length album and shared the slow-building new track, Crash Landing. Boston Screamo post-hardcore band The Saddest Landscape are releasing their first album in a decade, Alone with Heaven. And the new single, The Invisible Hurt, is a gorgeous, intense duet with Julian Baker. We've got an exclusive Where Angels Ascend cloudy vinyl variant available in the Brooklyn Vegan shop. As she begins her first ever headlining tour, Jelly Haha, whose album we had on our Best of 2025 album list, released a new song called Clouds Will Carry Me to Sleep. It's another maximalist synth pop bop with a colorful, whimsical video to go with it. Her live show is also supposed to be very colorful and whimsical, so definitely want to check that out when it gets to your town. Paul McCartney has announced a new album called The Boys of Dungeon Lane, which is coming in May, produced by Andrew Watt, who also did the last Rolling Stones album, a recent Iggy Pop album, and the recent Ozzy albums, not to mention a ton of other stuff like Ed Sheeran and Justin Bieber. SNL UK is now a thing, as you may have heard, and speaking of Wet Leg, they played the first episode. Musician Anderson .Paak stars in new movie called K-Pops, which is premiering online on Veeps.com Friday night. Live Q&A with Anderson included. Goth icons Dead Can Dance, one of my old favorites, have put all their music on Bandcamp, along with the release of their first new song in 5 years. Pixies, Dead Can Dance's old 480 label mates, have announced some 40th anniversary shows, not to be confused with their 39th anniversary shows, 38th anniversary shows, etc. New dates include the See Here Now Fest in Asbury Park, New Jersey, which this year also has Fontaine's DC, Kim Gordon, The Strokes, Moby, Mumford & Sons, The War on Drugs, Chaka Khan, and more. Downtown Boys are back with a announcement of their first new album in 9 years called Public Luxury. You can listen to the first single now. Waves has announced a summer tour with their old friends Bass Drum of Death and probably new friends World's Worst, who I didn't go to South by Southwest last week, but I noticed World's Worst were one of those bands that were on like every good party this year. They get around. I actually saw them at Best Friends Forever Fest in Vegas in 2024. Jay-Z continues his return to the spotlight with a GQ cover story interview and now a third Yankee Stadium show added to his itinerary. Also is on his itinerary, the Roots Picnic in Philly, which has announced the full lineup since we last spoke. Erykah Badu is the other headliner, and also on there now is De La Soul, Kehlani, Brandy, T.I., and a bunch of others. Sublime have announced their first new album in 30 years, and first with Jacob Noel, the son of late lead vocalist Bradley Noel, who has been performing live with them for the last few years. The album also features HR of Bad Brains, Pennywise's Fletcher Drag, G Love, Fiddlar, and Skeggs, and you can get 2 different exclusive vinyl variants, Blue Burst and Yellow Splatter, in the Brooklyn Vegan shop at shop.brooklynvegan.com. Also go check out brooklynvegan.com for more music news. And all right, thanks again, Amanda, for being here. Let's talk some 1996 albums with Bill and Andrew to end this. All right, so we're continuing this 1996 series. Each week, we're looking at different albums that Bill and Andrew chose to talk about and that have turned 30 this year or turning 30 this year. And Andrew's next pick is Jimmy World with Static Prevails.
the second of my 2 emo albums on my list. Like we said, we already talked about Texas, The Reasons, Do You Know Who You Are? 1996 was a huge year for emo, including Christie Front Drive's self-titled record, Minerals, The Power of Failing, Promise Rings, 30 Degrees Everywhere, Sensfield's Building, At the Drive-In's Acrobatic Tenement, Chamberlain's Fate's Got a Driver, Boy's Life, Departure and Landfalls, Jawbox self-titled, Bray's Age of Octane, Far's Tin Cans with Strings to You. The list goes on. Those are some big ones, but I am going to focus on Jimmy Eat World's Static Prevails. Here's an emo band that Bill at least has liked one song by, but this album is a lot different from the Jimmy Eat World that most people know. It's also a lot different from the Texas The Reason record that we talked about. Jimmy Eat World came from Arizona, so also not the Midwest, although people call this record Midwest emo. Their first album, if you've ever listened to that, which is definitely a bit like kind of disowned by most bands and fans at this point, was sort of like a Green Day inspired pop punk record. And then Jimmy Eat World found bands like Christie Front Drive in particular. They sort of heard this developing emo thing that was going on, and they were just like, this makes sense to us. This feels like the direction we should go in, much more so than like the pop punk thing of the time. And they made Static Prevails, which is this record that, again, was kind of them finding influence in bands like Christie Front Drive. Probably they would have been listening to Mineral, I would think. I'd have to kind of consult a list of their record collection at the time. They were listening to like this burgeoning second wave emo. Sunny Day Real Estate for sure would have been a band they were listening to. And they just kind of put their take on it. And it's like was instantly just as good as all the bands that had kind of been doing it already. On this record, Tom Linton and Jim Adkins were splitting lead vocals. Eventually, Jim Adkins took over as the lead singer. He's, his voice is the one that most fans of this band know and love. But Tom is an amazing voice too. And they basically trade lead vocals throughout the record. Jim, who kind of has like the prettier voice, which definitely sort of helped them, when it came to writing like their big hit singles like The Middle and Sweetness and Bleed American and all those kinds of songs. He's even kind of got more of like a rawer, grittier sound on this record. And hearing this familiar voice in this way more raw environment, those are like my favorite things. Like, again, so like because of my age, like, I didn't hear Static Prevails until after hearing Bleed American. Bleed American is the first record I heard by this band. It was their mainstream breakthrough, obviously. Probably doesn't need to be said. And then I went back to Static Prevails and Clarity, going backwards, hearing that this was the roots of the same band that was at the time all over MTV with The Middle. I mean, the first time I heard Static Prevails, I almost couldn't believe it was the same band. It's such a different version of the band they turned into. And then, of course, there's Clarity, which, is a masterpiece and is a gorgeous record. And most of the bands in the emo scene looked at Clarity as, okay, the bar is now raised higher than any of us have ever raised it. A lot changed because of that record. But with Static Prevails, Jimmy Eat World were kind of still climbing their way into the scene. And it's just really fascinating to hear these lifers, these stars, like, whatever word you use to just, they've been at it for 30 years. They're one of the biggest bands in their entire genre. They continue to be great. If you can ever see them live in the current time, you should. Their new music is good. What a lifer band. And then to hear them in this like young, raw, unpolished, imperfect format is just, it's a total treat.
It's been eye-opening to me to dig back into old Jimmy Eat World, because you said earlier when we did our Texas is the Reason segment that like emo was a bad word in 2004 when I started Brooklyn Vegan, and there were certain bands we would never post about. But like you reminded me, by the time Texas is the Reason reunited in like 2006, of course, Brooklyn Vegan was posting about that. I wasn't clueless to bands that we considered good that kind of fit what we cared about. But like I would have never considered Jimmy Eat World to be a band that I cared about, that Brooklyn Vegan cared about, until, I don't know, you probably have a better idea of what year it kind of became more, and I'm sure.
Well, I have a very good idea, because in 2014, Brooklyn Vegan published a list by me called 9 90s bands that you didn't know you like, something like that. And that was kind of the first time I made a case for Jimmy Eat World on Brooklyn Vegan. And the premise of the whole blurb for them was, even if you're turned off by their hits, you have to listen to Static Prevails and Clarity. And now, you know, and then not long after that, it became easier to be like, oh, also like the popular stuff's amazing too. In fact, some of it's, I mean, my favorite album by theirs is Bleed American, which if you're listening to this album, this episode in 2026, they are performing on tour all year for its 25th anniversary. So go see Jimmy World play Bleed American. I wish they would do like a tour of tiny venues and play Static Prevails. Most fans don't want to hear this. So I'm like, you know, play like Brooklyn Monarch and play Static Prevails in full with support from like Texas The Reason, something like that, you know, like, but a boy can dream. Anyway, yeah. So even in 2014, I was like, hey, this band's 90s stuff is cool. And that was like somewhat of a hot take in the Brooklyn Vegan universe at that time.
So in 2025, I did see Jimmy Eat World and Texas Is the Reason on the same bill. That was the Best Friends Forever fest that I keep mentioning in the context of these emo albums. And people were wondering, they ended up playing 10 songs off Clarity at that festival, but actually only 2 songs off Static Prevails. Can you remind me, was that surprising? Were people hoping for more Static Prevails at that show? Because like I said, I don't automatically know that as somebody who mostly ignored Jimmy Eat World for most of the time. But then I actually, that was the first time I ever saw them live, which was surprising just because I've seen so many shows, but also just shows you how much I kind of avoided or ignored that band, or I did love their set too. And it did obviously so fit in. And from stage, they kept talking about the shows from 30 years ago, how they played with every other band on this festival who are all like the classic kind of indie rock emo bands, and how they all would carry amps from basements up together. You know, they really leaned into that like pre-major label, or maybe not pre-major label.
They were on a major. This album came out on Capitol.
Oh yeah, well, all right, not pre-major, but pre-fame.
They got dropped because Clarity didn't sell. So,
right, that's another amazing story about them. Is they got dropped for not being.
It's like their artistic masterpiece, but it wasn't a commercial success. So their label was like, eh. And then they made this album was produced by Mark Trombino, who at the time was probably most famous for being the drummer of Drive Like Jehu, but now is most famous for producing Jimmy Eat World and Blink-182 records. Blink-182 made Dude Ranch with Mark Trombino because of Static Prevails. So that's like kind of a fun thing too, where like Jimmy Eat World's even less popular 90s emo record was already a big influence on Blink-182 a year later. Mark Trombino believed in Bleed American so much that he and the band like funded it together without a label support. And then they ended up selling it to DreamWorks, I believe.
Right, that they got bigger after they got dropped.
Mm-hmm.
Great story there. And so Static Prevails, meanwhile, they played 2 songs off Bleed American, including Middle, at Best Friends Forever, which that was in the encore. They were like, of course we're going to play the hits now, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. Were people expecting more Static Prevails?
So I think for that festival, people were pretty much banking on like possibly a full album Clarity set, if not mostly Clarity, which is what happened. I mean, Clarity is still by far their most loved record. You'll hear a little Static Prevails at most Jimmy Eat World shows. They don't totally ignore it, which is cool because a lot of bands that got way bigger in this world that have these cool older records, like they don't even touch them, like Blink-182. Sorry guys, but like, you know, Damn It and Josie is not enough. Dude Ranch, come on. But anyway, you'll hear a little Static Prevails if you see them live. But I think that everybody was kind of banking on a Clarity set. I think they could have played more than 2 songs from Static Prevails because it is a rare opportunity where they are performing for an audience who probably does know both those records, but especially they were headlining, right? I mean, I think the idea was that they were going to play mostly Clarity.
All right, Bill, what's your pick this week?
Last time we talked about Beck's Odelay, which I called the most 1996 album of 1996. And this one I think is a runner-up. It's Cibo Matto's debut album, Viva La Woman. It's definitely the most downtown NYC 1996 album, I think. Their duo, Yuko Honda and Mio Hattori, and they'd both been in a noise rock band together before this, and Yuka brought her synth and sampling creativity while Miho brought this like undeniable crazy energy, and together they had like wild lyrics. I moved here in 95 and word was already out on the street about this band, a year before the record was out. Their shows had become hits. They had become the darlings of, Sonic Youth and the Beastie Boys and the John Spencer Blues Explosion, all hyping them. And I actually, my first job in New York, I worked across the hall from designer Mike Mills, who did their album cover and also did like Sonic Youth's Washing Machine and John Spencer Blues albums. And so I really felt like a part of the hype at the time. It's just such a fun, inventive record. Cibo Matto means crazy food in Japanese, and Viva la Woman, I think almost every song on the record is about food in some way or another, from Know Your Chicken to Sugar Water to whatever. So much fun. And in a lot of ways, the record sounds like what living in New York City in the mid-90s kind of felt like, especially if you spent any time in the East Village or the Lower East Side. A lot of downtown NYC musicians are on this record, including John Spencer Blues Explosion's Russell Simmons, P-Funk and Talking Heads collaborator Bernie Worrell, Mark Anthony Thompson. I don't know, there's just like an undeniable sense of fun to this record, which still sounds great today, I think. And compared to Odelay, I'm much more likely to put on Viva la Woman than Odelay. You also can't separate Cibo Matto from their visual style, from, again, the artwork that's on the record. Mike Mills did a really cool job with the album artwork, and also their music videos. If you've never seen the video for Sugar Water, which was directed by Michel Gondry, one of his early videos, I think it's one of the greatest music videos ever made, certainly of the 90s, and I still can't figure out how they did it. It's a split screen, and the top one goes forward and the lower one goes backwards, and it's one continuous shot, and halfway through they meet. And I've watched this video, I don't know, 100 times over the last 30 years, and I'm still seeing new stuff in it, and I still find new things on the record. Dave, was this a record for you in 1996?
It wasn't. I knew the band. I knew probably whatever was on MTV, but it wasn't something I really dug into or explored, or I just don't remember, honestly. So, you know what also happens? This is really a tough thing with memory, at least for me. For sure, in 2004, I very much remembered what I knew about Cibo Matto for like the previous 8 years. But in 2026, it kind of all blurs together. It's hard to remember what I knew in the 90s versus what I learned 20 years later. It starts to kind of lose a timeline for me on certain things. But that also just means I wasn't like super into them. I could tell you the timeline on my favorite bands. Like you said, they were super cool, and Beastie Boys adjacent and John Spencer adjacent. And like, I think that's one thing that kind of like persisted, is they've continued to be super cool. Like the members' projects, you're likely to see them, still collaborating with some avant-garde jazz musician or Nels Cline or something. Yeah. Wait, the Nels Cline thing might be a bigger connection than I'm remembering now. Well,
Yuka's in like Nels Cline's like band, and I'm pretty sure they are a couple.
That's why we're pausing, because we both don't want to say the wrong thing. But yeah, I think that is. And Nels Cline being the amazing guitarist who does a lot of avant-garde stuff, but is also in Wilco.
Right. Andrew, you got any thoughts on Cibo Matto?
I have not heard this record.
All right.
All right. Blind spot.
Yeah. I need to change that.
And don't let, comparisons to Beck hold you back. So
hey, like I said, I like so much that's considered similar to Beck. So I'm actually like more familiar with the members of this band popping up on things just by, because they're still around so much that like Dave was kind of touching on. Like I feel like, but I owe this a listen.
It's definitely a cool record. So anybody who hasn't heard this, check it out.
Throughout her career, Yuka Honda has collaborated with a diverse array of musicians, including Petra Haden, Sean Lennon, Mike Watt, Nels Cline, Tricky, Harper Simon, Beastie Boys, Los Lobos, Brooklyn Funk Essentials, Michelle Froome, Medeski Martin and Wood, Mark Ribot, Yoshimi Piwe, Ardo Lindsay, Edie Brickell, Vincent Gallo, Luscious Jackson, Dave Douglas, Bernie Worrell, and Cayetano Veloso. Like you said, very cool.
Yeah. So like to also put it in context of 1996, I first saw them play at CBGB's, but they were also like part of the Knitting Factory scene, which was more, the John Zorns and that sort of world. So they were like in some sort of Venn diagram of New York City in 1996. They were that little sliver right in the middle. You could just put Cibo Matto and
right. And then Sean Lennon, who was dating Yuka at the time, also became
you're right.
Yeah, also became a member of the band. And yes, confirmed, now married to Nels Klein.
Thanks for tuning in. Dave and I will be back every Friday morning with new episodes of BV Weekly. And in between the episodes, you can always get much more from us at BrooklynVegan.com, on all of our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can pick up records from us at shop.BrooklynVegan.com. And if you like what you hear, tell your friends about us, subscribe to the show, give us a good rating. All that little stuff goes a really long way. It really helps us a lot, and we really appreciate it. So until then, thank you again, and see you next time.